This is the WellFounder Podcast.
Welcome back to the show, Kylie. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on again.
Oh, our conversation last time was so much fun. I'm so glad to be here with you again, David.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you back. I really want to dive deeper into the whole infinite leadership thing. You're like my first guest of the year, 2025, for everyone that's listening, and my first repeat guest as well for the year. So
exciting. I feel very honored. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So for any of our viewers that didn't watch the first one or not too familiar with you, could you introduce yourself to our audience and tell us what you do and how you go into that work?
Yeah, so my name is Kylee Leota. I hail from Brisbane in Australia, and I am the Chief Visionary Officer of a company called Elements for Success. And my vision is to create empowering experiences through courageous conversations by creating safe spaces for brave and courageous conversations for my clients in workshops, whether it be one-to-one, whether it be workshops, whether it be in training, to help people become leaders that they're destined to be, whether that be personally or professionally. And I truly believe that if we get an infinite leadership model happening, we'll have impact, innovation, and influence, and we'll be able to get the outcomes that we seek to have and to be all that we can be.
Awesome. All right then. So you anchor on this infinite leadership thing.
Yeah. It's my little book.
The book as well. I love it. Could you tell us what it is? Yeah? How do you define it and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I've kind of got a short version and I've got a longer version. The short version really is that what I noticed over the years is people get a little bit frustrated every time they have to go learn something new or they've got to get to the next level, then there's work to be done. People get frustrated and they'd feel resentful about the things that they had to do. But when we adopted the approach of continuous improvement and life is just an ongoing evolution infinitely, if we think about infinite learning, we can create infinite opportunities and infinite possibilities. And that is a much more positive way of thinking about things and makes it much easier. There's less resentment. It's kind of like, okay, well, this is just the next step in my journey, as opposed to feeling like, oh, here we go. Here's something else that they've put on my plate, or here's something else I've got to do. It changes that mindset to be more positively focused into that growth mindset process. And we know that continuous improvement, by continually improving ourselves, we also drive continuous improvement for everybody because we're modeling the way of what it means to be an infinite leader, which also then gives people permission to do the same.
So there's the whole idea of always learning, always improving, and bettering yourself. Yeah. Okay.
And I think what the internet has created this opportunity for us to have access to knowledge. Like, we can't claim that we don't know stuff anymore, right? Because you only have to go to YouTube, Facebook, whatever, any social media platform, and there is some information about something. I think sometimes the challenge is twofold. One is there's so much information out there. How do you figure out what is the right information for me right now in my current journey? And the second part that I think is challenging is that it seems so big all of the time. So the idea of infinite leadership is the fact that there's 8 different pillars, funnily enough, because there's 8 letters in infinite. And so we get to choose the part, for people that are big picture thinkers and macro thinkers, they might need to look at infinite as a whole. But for those that just need one bite-sized chunk of something I can hang on to right now, they might just pick a particular pillar. So the pillars of infinite leadership are identity. And I think the thing about that is it's an ongoing evolution. Vusi Thembakweo had said that identity is man-made, so thereby it can be man-changed. I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago, let alone 6 years ago, let alone 16 years ago. So if we continue to be defined by our past stories and our past narratives, then we are going to be stuck and we're not going to get to where we want to go. Nurturing is the second pillar, which is around our emotional intelligence. But more than that, it's about agility and how do we navigate through that. Fearlessness, and I describe fearlessness as not ever not feeling fear. It's about acknowledging it and validating it and then figuring out a way to move through it. Then we've got innovation, nobility, influence, transformation, and ecosystem, the people that we surround ourselves with. And they're so fundamentally important to us. And so each pillar has a number of subsets within each pillar. You know, within identity, we're looking at our values. And so often we forget, you know, when we spoke last time, we were talking about, you know, what's going well today and how can we do more of that. But we so much focus on, our brains are wired for negativity. So we tend to focus on our deficits versus our strengths, or we don't know how to capitalize on that. I think the second part of that is, with all of this knowledge out there, one of the biggest challenges is we know what is out there, but we don't know how to apply it into our own lives. So my big thing is about taking that theory that we're learning and all this information that is being thrust upon us the second you open up your phone, and going, first of all, discernment. What's really important for me right now that's going to get me to the next step? Instead of, well, that's a beautiful shiny object over there and that's a beautiful shiny object over there. What right now can I be focusing on? And the second part is, how do I then apply that to my life to take the next step? And that's really what infinite leadership is about. It's about doing it for yourself, whether that be personally or professionally. I apply the same skills in my personal life with raising 3 children as I do in business, is understanding who I am right now, who I aspire to be, and what are the skills and the tools and the strategies I need to be able to be that person. And then I keep working on it. And do you know what? Infinite leadership is about, sometimes you'll be ahead of the game and sometimes you'll be behind, but it's about that picking yourself back up and keep moving. Today wasn't the greatest day. Okay, tomorrow, what am I going to do? Yesterday, quite literally, the very first day of January in 2025, I had a flood downstairs in my garage, and I could have gone, right, well, 2025, that's going to ruin me my whole year now because look how it started. Or I can go, all right, well, that happened. Now what? And how did we move through that? And what actually came about it is my ecosystem came around me. My kids came and they jumped in and helped out, and we got it sorted really, really quickly. And so it didn't have a really big impact on my life, but that was the way that I was thinking about it, right? It wasn't like, oh my God, here we go. 2025 is going to be terrible because this thing happened on the very first day of January. It was really about going, well, that's annoying. Fine. Okay, what do we need to do now? And then being able to take the action upon that to get me through to the next stage, so that by second day of January wasn't impacted by what happened on the very first day, right?
I really like that. I love the whole idea of infinite learning and continuous improvement. I really like that
Yeah.
because, like I was saying in the last episode, that I'm somebody to a fault. I just learn and learn and learn, you know.
Yes.
And as you're talking, I'm wondering how can it be beneficial to a founder,
Mm.
this whole infinite learning or infinite leadership
So
thing.
yeah, I think so. For me, I had no formal business background when I started a business. So, like you, I'm a passionate learner.
Hmm.
So, I just dove in. And one of the things I think about infinite learners is they consume a lot of different information and then they pick the parts that are relevant to them. And so, you know, rather than just having one methodology or one modality and going, well, this is what I do, this is, you know, I listen to one person, they say do this, and this is what I'm doing. An infinite learner, I think, actually consumes a wide variety of information and then cherry picks the bits that work for them. And so they'll go, oh, I really like this bit from that person, and I really like this. And that personalizes it to create your own opportunities and possibilities. And it sets you apart from the rest of the businesses that you're competing against, because you're not doing the same thing as everybody else. So whilst you've got to get the foundations right and the basics right, and there's lots of really good information out there, I think you still need to be quite discerning in terms of what is going to be the best thing for you around that. And I think that ecosystem part, you know, when I started in business, I went searching. So my background comes from a government background, which is fairly institutionalized. Everything you did in government, everyone knew everyone. It was a very small, you know, ecosystem. And we didn't really go outside of that ecosystem. We didn't talk to corporates. We didn't talk to privates. We didn't talk to anyone. It was very, very small and very, very narrow. So when I went out into business, I went looking. I went looking for my ecosystem that I was going to fit into, that was going to support my growth. And there is a saying that says, if you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room, right? So this is not about your ego. This is not about going in to build you up and make you feel good about yourself, about what you're doing in business. This is about going in and finding people that are going to stretch you, they're going to support you, they're going to cheer you on, but they're also going to challenge you to think differently and be the best version of yourself. So I think that ecosystem part is absolutely pivotal. But even your identity, because so often as a founder and a business owner, our identity gets attached to the work that we do. And so if business is good, our identity is great. If business is going through a hard part, guess what? Oh, we're terrible people, or we're bad business people, or we're whatever, right? And so our identity has to hold strong to our values, and it has to work to our strengths. And we need to understand ourselves really, really well so we can cope with the ebbs and flows of being a founder in business. Because if you can't do that, you're not going to stay in the game very, very long. Which then requires that nurturing piece, emotional intelligence, understanding yourself, but being self-management. You only have to go on TikTok to hear all about self-awareness. And I call it DBT, diagnosis by TikTok. Everyone's got all this information and they apply all this stuff to themselves that they've learned through TikTok. And some of the information is great and some of it's valid and some of it's, not so great. But they don't talk about how to apply it to you personally. And it's the same with social skills. We talk about social skills all the time, but we don't talk about how to apply them. And so then we also don't talk about I'm awesome at social skills when I'm feeling relaxed and comfortable and confident in the room, when I know the people, whatever. But what about if I'm walking into a room with people I don't know? How do I know that I can trust them? How do I know this? So my social management skills actually have to be more astute in that setting because I don't have my default backups of my confidence and capabilities that I would normally have of going into a room of familiar people, known to me. Or I was talking to someone the other day who we were talking about conflict and how that navigates in her work experience, in her work life. And she said, with this particular team, she's very confident and she's quite happy to sit in conflict over certain things, challenge ideas, has a high level of psychological safety because they've worked with each other for a while. But when she's not confident about the topic she's talking about, she's got a new team or she's got all of these new things that she doesn't feel confident in as an expert in her own field, then she's not as comfortable and confident in her own agility and her own emotional awareness. So it's a more considered effort. Now, if we don't pay attention to that and keep doing the work on that, and infinite leadership really is having a really strong reflective practice around this. So checking in each day, each week, each month, each quarter, and going, well, what did I do well? Or where did what could I improve on for next time? Because the goal of being a founder in business is to stay in business for a long period of time. And that saying, if you do what you always did, you're going to get what you always got, is so true. And as business owners, business is changing all of the time. I've been in business relatively short time compared to some of my mentors. And even in that time, business has changed. The way we do business has changed. The way we navigate things has changed. All of these things have changed. So if we're not keeping up with the game, we're going to get left behind. And then we're going to have an identity crisis because we're going to associate ourselves as poor business people. And that's not actually true. It's just that we haven't got a really good reflective practice and we're not doing that continuous learning, continuous development, continuous growth to create those infinite opportunities and infinite possibilities.
I really like that, and I can resonate with that because of even in before I dove into e-commerce, I was having this very critical business problem I was struggling with, and it wasn't until I went into e-commerce that I was able to figure out how to solve the problem from the service side. So there's something you said that I resonated where you said think differently. I guess going into e-commerce,
Yeah.
it allowed me to see things differently, and yeah, I really like that. And then yeah, sorry, carry on.
Perspective
Yeah,
taking, right?
yeah.
So we often get stuck in, we like to spend time with people that think like us, that potentially are in the same business as us, because it makes us feel safe. It is safe for our egos to sit there and go, oh yes, well, we're all in this particular field and we all know this thing and we're in this, I think the comfort zone is so poorly named. I think it's the familiar zone. And when we get a different perspective by going into a different industry, by going into a different group, by going into a different environment, sometimes it allows us to create enormous problem solving capabilities that we would not have been able to do had we stayed in the same situation with the same people doing the same thing.
So true. So true. One of my biggest regrets was not going into e-commerce sooner after
Yeah.
after figuring that out. So yeah, that I can totally resonate. This is crazy. All right, so Kylie, then in that case, then how can founders become more infinite leaders? Let's say, is there, obviously you talk about your processes, the meaning of
Yeah.
the word, but how do you take founders from being non-infinite leaders to becoming infinite leaders? What does that look like?
So we talk about being coachable. Who is a safe person for you that you can have brave and courageous conversations with, and someone that Tasha Eurich in her book Insight talks about the loving critic, not the so that you've got the unloving critic, which is the person that's going to find fault with everything that you do. Then you've got the uncritical lover who's going to think you're amazing no matter what you do. Oh, you failed at that. You're amazing. Figure it out. You'll do fine. You'll do all this kind of stuff. But the loving critic are the people that are going to be your champions, but they're also going to be your challengers, but with the intention that they want to make you a better version of you. So, who do you have in your world right now that could be that loving critic for you? And if you don't have one, I would strongly suggest, I'm a little bit biased. Coaching was the best thing that ever happened to me, which is why I ultimately became one. And I still see such value with the right coach. So, making sure that you are, again, I've said the word discernment about 10 times, I think, in this podcast, but try people out. Try before you buy. Have a conversation with them. Make sure they're a good fit. You're not everyone's cup of tea. And so everyone's working through their own issues. And you've got to find a good match for you. My very first coach that I ever had as a coach, I was out earning her within the first 3 months of my business. And was she a lovely person? Absolutely. But was she going to get me where I was going to go? She wasn't, unfortunately. So then I had to find somebody else, and then find somebody else, and then find somebody else. And that doesn't mean that they're not good people. They're not right fit for you. And we often, I think about our ecosystem, we talk about our partners or our friends or our whatever, but you need somebody who can separate, and give you that unbiased feedback or hold space for you to unpack your thoughts in an unbiased manner to really get that infinite leadership position going, because often the answers are within you. You just need someone to ask you the right questions to help you get to that next step in that journey. And I think if you haven't got that person in your life, I would strongly encourage you to invest in a coach, the right coach.
I like that, and I can see the value in that because of somebody that, like you said, the right coach is probably ahead of you and knows what you're going through and knows how to get you to where you want to go. So it'd probably get you there quicker with asking the right question. I like how you said
Yeah.
the answers are within you. I totally agree. The answers are not out there. It's already within you. So you just need somebody to help you
Mm.
extract those answers for you. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can totally see
And
the
I
value in that. Yeah.
and I think the reason people don't invest in coaching
Mm.
is, one, they don't probably understand it
Mm.
very well. And in Australia, it's still a relatively new concept compared to maybe what some of the other countries in the world, the US in particular, but even Europe are probably a little bit more ahead of the game in terms of coaching as a process than in Australia. But the other part of it too is it's hard work.
Mm.
It's not for the faint-hearted. You're not going to go away always feeling rainbows and unicorns.
Mm.
When I go away from my coaching experience, sometimes I'm like, feel like I've been through, a workout, because I've had to work my brain really hard because I've been pushed really hard. And that's not because that they're mean. It's because they know I am capable of more, and they know that I know what to do.
Mm.
I just need to get it in the right order, in the right place, and in the right time, and have a safe pace to go, God, this sucks today. and and then pick myself back up and keep going, right? And if you're having a really fun time all of the time with your coach, you don't have the right coach. You know, Coaching is supposed to be hard work. The reason people don't get into coaching is it's because it's hard. A lot of my clients say to me, "Oh my God, I knew you were going to make me talk about this today." Or, "Oh my gosh, this is hard. I don't want to talk about this," But once we get through it, they're like, "I knew you'd make me feel better. And I'm going away feeling so much clearer on what I need to do next. Thank you so much." Right? But that doesn't mean there's not a messy middle. And so you've got to be prepared for that. I think if you go into the idea of rainbows and unicorns, you're going to be disappointed and you're going to be disheartened with the system. But if you want to be a better version and you want to be an infinite leader, then you're up for the challenge. You're up for feedback that you may know, but maybe you haven't articulated out loud to yourself. You're up for the hard questions that are going to challenge you to be a better version of yourself. Otherwise, what's the point? If you want to stay mediocre, then stay mediocre. That's fine. But if you want to be better and you want to grow and you want to have this $1 million business or $5 million business or whatever, it's going to take hard work. And I think the other part of it too is people sit there and talk about hard work. We talk about, yeah, I'm all up for hard work. But are they doing the right hard work?
I like that. I like that. There's a lot of people that are busy doing nothing, or busy, the wrong type of busy, basically.
We wear busyness as a badge of honor, though,
Yeah.
right? Society, hustle, busyness. I worked in a government system where I would come home some days and I hadn't eaten and I hadn't gone to the bathroom. And do you know what? I'd be like, I haven't even gone to the bathroom today, like a badge of honor. There is something fundamentally wrong with that, right?
There is.
So you've got to be busy on the right things. And how do you, again, discern what are those right things? Sometimes you need an outside person
Yeah.
to sit there and hold space for that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you get busy on the wrong things and you start spinning your wheels and you go backwards.
Can totally relate to that. Awesome. That's a great takeaway from this. I was gonna ask. Actually, let me still ask. What's one final tip then? As we wrap up, what would you leave? I like this whole get a coach thing. In fact, one of my friends have even told me he got a coach that he didn't like. He
Yeah.
felt like he would bully the coach. Basically, that's that's the word he used.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah. What's your final tip then? What would you leave us with in this episode?
I think, I talk a lot about the idea of Mary Poppins, and Mary Poppins had this bag, and in her bag, she would just pull things out of it. If you remember the movie, she was pulling hat stands out, she was pulling all of these things out of her
Umbrellas
bag.
and shit.
Umbrellas, everything, right? But infinitely, it was just never-ending bag. And I think in coaching, for me, my job is to do that for strategies. Is if someone's stuck, and it's not to tell them what to do, it's to give them exposure to some other things that they perhaps haven't thought of. And then it's about trying on a strategy like a shirt. Is it a good fit? Is the tag itchy? Is it too tight? Is it too soft? Is it too itchy, scratchy when you try it on? Or is it the perfect fit? And if it is a good fit, then implement the strategy. If it's not, take it off and put a new one on. That's the whole thing. And we get bogged down in the fact that sometimes I think we die on the hill by we invest in this, we're going this way, and we commit to that process. And I think that's really important. We've got to have a goal that we're working towards. But if the goal is not working, or the outcome's not working, or the work's not working, we have to be able to rethink our strategies, and we need to reflect, review, and recalibrate and get back on a path, maybe a different pathway to get to that outcome. And I think too often our egos get in the way of us being able to do that. So if I had one piece of advice today out of everything that I talked away is check your ego. How often is your ego making the decision for you versus your intuition of knowing what's the next right step?
I love that. I love that a lot, and that is that could be a good New Year's resolution for anybody listening.
Yeah.
This year is my year of checking ego. Yeah, checking my ego. I really like that. A
Yeah.
great way to wrap up the show. Kylie, it's always a pleasure having you on. If you ever wanted to come back again to talk some more, even on this ego side of things, because I know that is an issue for entrepreneurs, that would be something excellent to talk about. Where can our viewers go learn more about you? Buy your book, even? What's the best way for them to do it?
Yep. So you can actually buy my book on Amazon now. It's just gone up on Amazon, so you can find it there, or you can go to my website, Elements for Success, and that's number 4, success.com.au, and go to the section on media, and then there's books, and then you can buy it from there. But Amazon, you can find me on LinkedIn under Kylee, Kylee Leota, Leota, and you'll find me on Instagram and Facebook under Elements number 4 Success.
Lovely. And I will include all of that in the show notes. Kylee, it's been an absolute pleasure. And thanks for
always fun.
Always.